I would like to introduce, Rohit, you know, and Rohit Piparsania. He is a global delivery leader at Amdocs, and he currently is leading the program. And he's a proven global delivery leader with 20 plus years of core IT experience with various Fortune clients like British Telecom and 3UK, AT&T, T-Mobile, General Electric, Nationwide Insurance. And he has over 7 years of on-site experience in the US. And currently, he leads the Amdocs Quality Engineering Offshore Delivery Center in India and Cyprus, and is responsible for all the global deliveries. And he has proven expertise in building high-performing teams with well-rounded focus on delivery excellence. And he is a critical thinker with a deep and wide understanding of experience on legacy as well as new technologies. Today, he would be speaking to us about how do we evolve the function of QE for digital transformation of telecom companies or the telcos. And he would be sharing his experiences on that. So, without much ado, let me welcome Mr. Rohit Piparsania to grace us with his information. Rohit, over to you.
Thank you, Pradeep. I hope everybody can hear me.
Absolutely, sir. Loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay, you are breaking up a little, so that's why I thought, let's hope it's not my connection.
No,
That's
it's
another
certainly
joy
not
of
yours.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I'll share my screen. Yeah, hope my screen is visible.
Yes, absolutely, sir. We
Pradeep, can you
certainly
confirm
like to
this?
make it amazing. Yeah, we can hear yours. We can see your screen.
Perfect, perfect. So thank you so much, Pradeep. Thanks for that flowering introduction. This is the first time I'm participating in this conference, and I'm very excited to take a deep dive after the very informative session from Srivatsan about digital transformation across the industry. I think it's set up the perfect stage for me to go deeper into one of the industries that the industry I've been associated with for last 16 plus years, which is telecom. So over the next 15-20 minutes, what we'll do is we'll take the principles of digital transformation applied to telcos, what their opportunities are, what their challenges are, and more importantly, then we'll quickly move on to how the QE, the quality engineering practice, has to evolve in order to cater to those new challenges which are coming up as the telcos are transforming. Okay. So introduction, I think, is already covered. So we'll move straight ahead into just a context into digital transformation. So Srivatsan gave a very detailed view. So I won't spend much time on what digital transformation is, but I want to drive home one important point, which I will come to pretty soon. So when you talk about digital transformation, these are the four pillars. Of course, social plays a huge role in any digital transformation because it brings in the network effect, that platform economy. It is impossible, without trying, without connecting the buyers and the sellers as Amazon does, or the users and the consumers as YouTube does, and so on. So to achieve that network effect, I think we all know the importance of social, and it also opens up, some very interesting use cases of how do you engage with the customer directly instead of going through those agents and the mediums in between, right? Mobile I'll come to later. Analytics, again, very important aspect of any digital transformation across any industry. uh, you are generating huge amount of data. You want to move towards the customer experience journeys, and you want to create a self-service, self-service kind of paradigm. All that is possible only and only when you are actively analyzing the data that is being captured through each and every transaction, through the customer journeys, through the recommendations, through what product the customer is clicking on. And that opens up very interesting avenues for monetizing the data we are collecting on the customer. And that explains why Google is where it is, where Facebook is where it is, and how many various ways they have use the data to further their business through innovative, business models, right? And cloud is definitely at the center of it. It's a key backbone to enable those real-time connected experiences, and also to as act as the backbone where all the data aggregation happens, the analytics happens, the AI gets applied on to generate all those insights that are so important in creating great experiences for the customer. Now coming to mobile, all this, social analytics, cloud, if you look at the medium through which it is consumed, is mobile, and that number is growing. Today we talk about mobile phones that every user has, and very soon, and our kids have now, thanks to the pandemic, and very soon there's going to be a further explosion where we'll see a lot of smart devices all across, through IoT, in the farms, in the autonomous cars and whatnot. So this is the main topic of our discussion, which I will get to. Mobile, when we talk about, is powered by telecommunications. And if you look at digital transformation, I think it's a very, very powerful opportunity for all the telecommunication companies to be a great part of this transformation, which is happening across the industry, whether it's retail, whether it's hospitality, whether it's care. Any industry is getting transformed, and telecommunication is the common fuel that is driving it, right? And one important point when we talk about transformation is not just upgrading to these technologies. I think that's a very important distinction that most businesses in their race to become digital sometimes lose sight of. It's important that when we talk about adopting these technologies, we also think about what is the way in which I am transforming my business, what how I'm monetizing the data, how am I monetizing that network effect that I have built, how do I onboard various uh, buyers or sellers or various parties onto the platform that I'm building. Because unless you do that, it's only a cost which is only going to increase otherwise. So we have to look at digital transformation from a business transformation lens, and we have to make sure that any industry, any organization which is trying to do a transformation, digital transformation, has a business model very, very clear in terms of new revenue streams, new products, new experiences, and so on. Now, coming to telco, it's a very peculiar problem for telcos. As we know, telcos have a very, very complex stack already. They have, the network, the OSS, the BSS, and so on. And everybody is trying to open up to give those, spectacular experiences that the customer needs. So, and at the same time, they also are going to play a very clear key role in the transformation of various other industries, because everybody needs telecommunication. So that's the last point: DT inside to drive DT outside. In order to be relevant, in order to be a part of the journey of the digital transformation that every industry is going to undergo, they have to first transform themselves. They have to open up their system, and that's what we'll talk about next. That how every telco has to look inside, has to be ready, so that they can actually play a very relevant role in this transformation, which is right in front of us. Okay. And another important point is telecom, as we know, in the last several years, has expanded like anything. But if you look at the profitability, if you look at the revenue of all the big telcos in the world, that has been shrinking. The ARPU has been reducing, and most of the revenue which is being generated through this transformation is going to the FANGs, the Facebooks, the Alphabets, and so on, right? So now the question is, with 5G coming in, is there another opportunity? And we believe very, very confidently there's a huge opportunity in front of the telco companies to be relevant in this next wave. And let's talk about some of those opportunities that are going to be there. 5G. We went from 2G to 3G to 4G and now 5G. Now, how 5G is a game changer? 5G comes with a very different proposition, and we'll discuss some of that later in the presentation. But 5G brings in very exciting exciting and new use cases, which can be used to drive new revenue streams. And some examples are already we are hearing in front of us. For example, your autonomous car. Today, the biggest problem is how do you bring the right latency so that instantaneous decision making can happen. How do you do, for instance, a robotic surgery, where every microsecond is important? We are talking so much about metaverse. Are we really ready for metaverse in the 4G world? Can it support the throughput which is required? For gaming, you need say 10 megabits a second. For metaverse, you are going to need 100 megabits a second. You need such low latency that when you flick your finger, it should be instantly be visible in the metaverse. All that is going to put a huge amount of strain in the system. 5G is the answer to that. How do we build expanded capacity? How do we create ultra low latency kind of quality of service? How do we get ready for those millions of devices or billions of devices that IoT is going to bring in? Okay, and rest all kind of follows. When you have 5G, so many connected devices, there's going to be huge amount of data moving to and fro. And for telcos, it's a great opportunity. The data, if you take an example of IoT, there would be computing at the edge. Say, there's a farmhouse which is full of sensors, and there are edge computers installed. The telco is going to be in control of that edge computer and the data, and therefore the data. The data is definitely going to go through the telco's network, and again, it will give new use cases to get insights and new business models as well, right? So what we talked about earlier, Google has the control of data, which is why they make most of the revenue. This is the chance for telcos also to get control of some data. Okay, and AI, of course, with all this data, AI is going to play a wider role in terms of generating those insights, which can be used for self services to reduce the operational cost, which has been a huge drain on the revenues of the telco, on the cost of the telcos. Yeah. So, and again, I mean, with these insights, for example, some telco, tier one telco in Europe, they are building a marketplace, and it's a very simple and beautiful example. They have so many loyal customers. They have so many loyal enterprises already on the system. Everybody is using the services of this telecom provider. Why not to build a platform called a marketplace, bring them together, and become the next Amazon? So all those use cases kind of are going to open up as the telcos transform themselves. IoT we talked about, and obviously it will require new sets of services. Today we have services catering to our mobile phones. Definitely there will be need to cater to edge computers and sensors and whatnot. Uh, Network is the next area. To In order to support all these use cases, the network has to open up. We are already moving very fast from device based network to software based network, whether you call SDN, software defined network, or whether you call network function virtualization. The network is going to be more and more open, more and more software driven, and so that they can serve all those use cases and dynamic quality of service and so on. And cloud again is the backbone to support everything and to build those stellar experiences. Okay, so moving on, a few challenges which are going to be have to overcome in order to unlock those experiences that I talked about, those opportunities that I talked about. Most of the telcos, if you look around, first of all, the stack is extremely complicated. There are millions of devices interconnected to each other, and a lot of physical inventory which is in place. And there are a lot of proprietary systems as well as bespoke systems which are driving those components. And in order to cater to the new use cases, modernization is a very important task, and there has to be a reduction or rationalization in the number of systems they have, as well as the NFV and SDN and so on that we talked about, right? Data silos, they are sitting on huge amount of data, but the data is kind of spread all over. Billing data is sitting in the billing system, customer data is sitting in the CRM system, and network data is sitting in the network system, and so on. Uh, yes, data warehouses have been created, data lakes have been created, but still largely there are a lot of silos which is a great barrier to monetization of the data that these telcos have on their customers as well as on their rest of the users. Then products, billing, everything is very, very complicated. Today, when we talk about bill, everybody says, everybody, if you ask any user, it's very hard to decode, what that bill is. In India, fortunately, we have something called prepaid, but in other countries, still the stress is on postpaid, and people want to be able to decipher their bill. They want to be able to control their services, and things have to be simple. And unfortunately, today there are hundreds of products that the telcos have, which requires very complicated billing, and those are high barriers to not only to serve the customer better, but also results into high operational costs, because no matter how much you build invest into self-service, self-care through apps and whatnot, people get confused and they end up calling the call center, right? And again, to utilize those use cases like 5G, IoT, network slicing, you have to have a simpler business model which works in real time, right? Legacy network, again, it has to open up so that it can be controlled on demand. Use cases can be provided based on what you need, whether your need is to go to a metaverse or your need is to just drive your home automation. The quality of service is going to be very, very different, whether you want high bandwidth or you want low latency, and so on. And that is where all this is possible if the network elements can be directly controlled by software, which is where network virtualization comes into picture. Okay, and data centers, again, as we said, cloud is the key in order to use those cloud native services, the microservices paradigm, and so on. And the data centers have to be modernized as well. I mean, many telcos are creating their own clouds today, but it is important that we take a hybrid cloud model, at least, where we take the services of Google and of Amazon and of Azure and so on to build really great use cases. So after having a quick look at the telcos, let's look at how IT is also evolving, because that's another important dimension. Telcos obviously have a lot to do, but at the same time, as we have been on this journey of digital transformation, especially in the retail industry, and also in companies like Google and so on, there has been an evolution which is already happening in QE, and then maybe we'll try to put the two things together. So today, if you look at it, most of the organizations have moved to browser-based IDs, which means thin clients and all. Agile adoption has been very good. There is a conscious effort to build performance and NFRs right into the product at the design phase. The practices like behavior-driven development have become very important, and quality engineering, I think everybody has realized the importance of it, because no longer we have those monolithic applications where things used to be simpler. Now, with transformation platform, the estate is really distributed, and it is very important to have a dedicated practice and a thought process which goes throughout the SDLC for quality outcomes. Okay. The next circle is about where the adoption needs to be. Everybody is moving to the DevOps value stream model. There are in the various phases of this journey, observability over monitoring, so that features like self-healing can be built into. Then model-based system engineering instead of feature-based is gaining more and more importance, simply because we have moved away from the time where we used to have, first of all, simpler systems and simpler designs, compared to completely distributed model where as the same model can drive development as well as testing, right? And test data management also has to keep up with DevOps practices, has to become part of the CI/CD pipeline, so that there is one seamless experience when it comes to making change or delivering new features to the point of making sure that it is ready for production. And where we need to evolve to. So over the last, I would say 10 or maybe 6 or 7 years, while these new practices have been adopted, it's been a journey, and very few organizations can today claim that they have really reached the end goal of their journey. And as part of that, many organizations have realized what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And yes, most of us have done test automation. I think it has become a very important thing to do. But there is definitely some writing on the wall which tells us, where we need to evolve to. So autonomous testing, for instance, from automation to autonomous. How do we automate each and everything that we do? Like Avinash talked about yesterday, that if we have to wait for something, it means that's an opportunity for automation, and that's what autonomous is all about. Each and every step of the way, how do we make things work on their own instead of a human having to do something? How do we bring in the concept of chaos engineering, where we create those problems that the future systems are going to face, and figure out how will we deal with them ahead of times. AI augmented software engineering, AI in everything. If we talk about use of AI for customer insights, it's equally important to bring AI into our tools, so that even at the end of the day, the tester is also a customer, the engineer is also a customer. How do we use AI to make their life easy, and how do we take the drudgery out of their work, and make testing a more meaningful experience for our testing community as well. Microservices means loosely coupled. Testing is not at all easy, as we all know. And how do we build in the practices of continuous quality, where quality doesn't start from the day software is deployed into an end-to-end environment, uh, but when the first spec starts, maybe from a model instead of a paper design. And from that point itself, how do we make sure that continuous assurance of quality happens throughout the SDLC? And obviously, cloud native architecture has its own challenges. Still, many customers are not moving all the way to cloud for cost reasons, for security reasons. So there has to be a practice around how do we do hybrid cloud, how do we do multi-cloud, how do we do a combination of on-prem and cloud, and so on, to make sure that they are working seamlessly, as a unit, and the user experience is not impacted because of the complexity. So finally, putting it all together, when we talk about what do we need for telcos to be ready for this transformation, and b get the most out of it, because that's a second opportunity which is knocking their door, and they have to capitalize on it. So we talked about 5G and IoT. Now I'll talk about what it means for telcos. So 5G and IoT requires very different perspective on the quality of service, because of huge amount of stress on the data capacity, number of connected endpoints because of the device explosion, and the expectation of service agility, low latency network, and so on. We will also have to make sure that when we do software defined network, those have to be automated, not in terms of operations, but also in terms of quality assurance. And that is going to be a new challenge for quality engineering. uh, Network function virtualization, very very complicated, and yet going to play a very important role. How do we certify that all those virtualized network components are functioning at the right levels, they are responding to the controls to provide the dynamic quality of service, right? Mobile CPEs, 5G is going to bring in some very new kind of devices, and certification of those devices, whether they are working fine at the optimal level, is going to be something new that we all have to mature into. I mean, everybody is doing it, but we have to mature into. Slicing automation, so one network slice for say a metaverse, another network slice for say robotic surgery. How do we do the testing of that slicing, right? Now, on the right hand side, if you look at data monetization in cloud, again, the telcos are moving towards cloud apps and SaaS and IaaS and PaaS. But important thing is, how do we make sure that resiliency is built in? We know about Black Friday, we know about the iPhone launch and the strain it puts on the telco systems. How do we make sure that we test for that resiliency beforehand and be ready, whether it's the NPI launch or new product launch or the Black Friday sale? Then data enrichment and customer experiences, all are going to be extremely important, to which the QE's practices have to evolve to. Uh, and most of all, it is no longer possible that engineers sitting within the organization can do it all, because customer experiences you talk about, every customer is going to have a different experience. Somebody ask, talk about your customer segmentation. Every customer has its own segment thanks to AI. How do you do that? How do you bring more and more people in to test your software well? and that is where crowd testing comes into picture, right? So these are some of the I think evolutionary challenges that QE has to evolve to embrace and come up with some innovative solutions so that telcos can benefit and all the other industries can benefit. The inner circle talks about the mindset and the practice and the guiding principles of Agile and DevOps, which is going to be very, very important. We all know that the systems are distributed. One day, sooner rather than later, we have to adopt to those Agile and the DevOps practices. We have to make sure that intelligent automation is built in so that we are spending less time doing those scripts and more time making sure that our system is giving the right customer experiences. So in terms of where we need to move from features based testing, we need to move to model based testing. From scripted automation, which has been the mainstay since last several years, we have to move to something which works on its own. You don't have to write complicated software which auto heals, auto corrects, and so on. And there are many products for scriptless automation, but it has to work in the paradigm, this complicated paradigm that I talked about. Data, of course, is important, and gone are the days of data setup. We are talking about AI and ML use cases in the systems to test, right? So various software, for example, automation software, AI has to be built in. Instead of historical traceability, we need to talk about how do we apply machine learning and AI to predict what needs to be regression tested based on the changes you have made to your software. And from script failures and analysis and so on, we need to move to self-healing capabilities. Again, and IT infrastructure, we all know how long it takes even today to create a new test environment. From there, we have to move to environment as a service, where test environments can be spun in a matter of hours and set up with everything using DevOps, CI/CD pipeline, and so on. So that's the evolution that the QE practice has to go to. And I'll quickly talk about in the last 1 minute how at Amdocs we have been taking this very seriously. We have been working on this since a very long time, and as you know, Amdocs comes with a very strong telco-centric experience, be it our innovative products, which are helping the telecom providers transform, our strong domain knowledge, or whether it's our execution, because just having a product is one part. We have to implement it. We have to make it work with the complex technology stack that telcos have, and we have to make sure it keeps working after deployment as well, right? And we have been working on a lot of innovative IP. Ginger, for instance, is a scriptless test automation tool, which is there since a very long time and has evolved into a very mature product. Aqua brings in AI and ML capabilities. We have ATDM for test data management, and so on. For resiliency, we have one load, one view, and so on. Again, having tools is not enough. Process is equally important. And our QMate brings in process maturity to make sure that all this ties up together in a very mature process, which can add meaningful value. Okay. And last but not the least, we are supported by a very rich community of technology partners who are making sure that we have a seamless system and a seamless platform to deliver those stellar practices. Okay, I think that's all I have. Over to you,
Fantastic. As in,
Pradeep.
certainly one of the most technical presentations that I've ever seen, sir. Okay, and it was certainly very enlightening. And this is exactly the reason why I love STC. And since every time when we come in and people do go into specific depth of a particular industry and a domain, and there it becomes very evidently clear, as to how much we need to really appreciate the complexity and how much we need to go through. So really, thank you for providing us the insight into how a telco organization and the challenges that they go through, and the kind of an
Mhm.
evolution that you're seeing through digital transformation within your organization. And really
Yeah.
nice to take us through the journey. And fantastic opportunity. And I'm sure a lot of them are spellbound and not having any questions at the moment. I don't see many questions, but I do expect them to certainly come back with a lot of questions, because yesterday there was a lot of interest in Ginger as well. We've been monitoring
Mhm.
some of the activity at the back end. And again, a lot of them were keen on looking at self-healing, tools. There were a lot of people talking about scriptless tools. There were
Hmm.
a lot of people looking at chaos engineering and application of chaos engineering, which are like
Yeah.
interesting technical concepts. And I normally would not get to see them in most of the conferences. Even though I travel abroad and I see many conferences, and then each conference when I go to, the amount of work that we do in terms of technical capability, I think is amazes me. Really amazes me because I think it certainly there's no comparison in terms of what we really deal with complexity versus what the rest of the world kind of presents it as, right? So
Yeah.
I think the real work is happening there, and I really am thankful that you took your time off, to present with us your perspective on digital transformation. Uh, we will do follow-on sessions for sure, because I'm sure there will be a lot more. And this year again, the interesting aspect I should say is we've had more engineering organizations participate in the STC. Like we have
Hmm.
Siemens, we have Philips, we had people coming from different countries, from engineering perspective to present a paper, so which is
Yeah.
actually interesting. So thanks a
So
lot
Pradeep,
for
that's
that.
very interesting. You say we used to talk about convergence of mobile phone and data and so on, and now we are looking at a great industry convergence. Amazon
Absolutely.
is selling something else altogether. They are into streaming and media. So there's a great industry convergence which is also happening. So don't be surprised if Siemens starts selling something else altogether.
No, no, I won't be, but I think it's a beauty for me is when I'm listening to the community members, even in terms of the techniques or the technology or the thought process or the kind of a way they are trying to address the problem. There is so much of a creativity and an ingenuity which is coming out there, and the it looks like we want more and more complex problems. In the sense that's what is what is interesting. As in
Well, that's what is keeping us alive, isn't it? In business, isn't it?
which is absolutely true, and I think that's a as in the very few who can understand complexity, and I'm very happy that the crowd here appreciates the depth and the complexity that's going on through. So thank